What if I told you there are people currently living in Vancouver?
Oh boy, Vancouver.
Right. Literally one of the most notoriously expensive real estate markets on the entire planet. But what if I told you that after paying their rent, these people are surviving on just $60 a month?
Wait, $60 like total for the month.
$60 for the entire month.
Yeah.
And here is the really crazy part. What if I told you that instead of being completely paralyzed by the kind of stress that would keep, most of us awake at night, they actually claim to be living completely freely, comfortably, and without a single drop of anxiety?
I mean, honestly, it sounds mathematically and, well, psychologically impossible.
Right.
We are just so conditioned to link our peace of mind directly to our bank balances. So a claim like that, it feels almost offensive. Like it breaks the fundamental rules of how we are taught the world works.
I had the exact same reaction. I mean, I was staring at those numbers thinking, this has to be a typo, right? There's no way.
So the math just doesn't math.
Exactly. But that specific mathematical anomaly is actually the ultimate proof of concept for the deep dive we are doing today. So we are exploring this really radical essay. It was published on April 11th, 2024, written by Zhuofeng and translated by Kinyu. And the piece is titled, Being Free from Material Constraints, You Become a Celestial Being.
Which I know sounds incredibly esoteric at first glance.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like, the title alone might make you think this is a lecture on, moving to a mountaintop and meditating in a cave.
Yeah.
But the core of this text is actually a hyper-practical breakdown of the human operating system.
Totally.
It asks this genuinely terrifying question. Is the endless loop of working, paying bills, worrying about getting sick, and trying to upgrade your apartment actually the point of being alive? Or, and this is the kicker, is it a psychological trap we've all just voluntarily stepped into?
Yeah. And just to set the ground rules for you listening, because I know where your mind is probably going, our mission today is not to convince you to sell your car, throw away your smartphone, and go live in the woods.
Right. No one is saying you have to do that.
We are not advocating for some extreme minimalism lifestyle here. Instead, we are hunting for the mechanism. We want to extract the aha moments from this text about how shifting what your mind fundamentally revolves around, like what its axis is, might actually be the ultimate life hack for actual tangible freedom in your everyday life.
But before we can discuss how to escape the trap, we really have to clearly define what the trap even is.
Right.
And the essay isolates what it calls the 8 material constraints. These are essentially the things that dictate the exact terms of our existence.
Okay, let's unpack this because I call them the big 8. According to the text, they are, let me get the list, eating, clothing, shelter, transportation, birth, aging, illness, and death.
The heavy hitters.
Yeah, exactly. The author argues that most people spend their entire lives just toiling over these 8 things. The pursuit of the first 4, food, clothes, housing, car.
Acquiring phase.
Right. And then the terrified avoidance of the last 4, aging, getting sick, dying. It completely dominates our cognitive load. It gets to the point where we literally forget the true purpose of coming into this world.
Just think about the sheer volume of your daily thoughts dedicated just to those categories.
Oh, it's exhausting.
Calculating the grocery bill, or stressing about a weird pain in your lower back, figuring out the commute traffic. I mean, it consumes almost all available bandwidth.
It really does. I was reading this and it made me think of, when you play a massive, beautifully rendered open-world video game.
Oh, yeah, like the ones that take 100 hours to beat.
Exactly. You drop $70 on this game, and it has these huge mountains to climb, deep lore to uncover, this massive universe to explore. But instead of actually playing the main quest, you spend 400 hours of gameplay just wandering around the starting village, aggressively collecting digital pennies.
Just to buy digital bread.
Right. So your character's hunger meter doesn't drop.
Yeah.
And you never leave the village. You are completely ignoring the actual game itself.
That is a great analogy. But, and this raises an important question, actually, that analogy does have a limit.
Okay, how so?
Because in a video game, you can just turn off the console, right? Or you can just let the character starve and respawn.
Fair point.
In our reality, we have physical bodies, we biologically require calories, we need shelter so we don't freeze in the winter. And the essay does not deny this physical reality.
It's not pretending we don't need to eat.
Exactly. And that distinction is really the hinge upon which this whole philosophy turns. Having a physical body means we must eat. That is an inescapable biological fact. The trap is not the food itself. The trap is the consciousness falling into materialism.
So it's essentially the difference between eating a sandwich and, obsessing over the sandwich.
Yes. The author distills it into this brilliant, really simple rule. Quote, Whatever we revolve around, we are bound by.
Oh, wow.
Obsessing over obtaining food means you are bound by food. Obsessing over earning money, even if your initial logical goal was just to secure basic survival resources,
Right, like paying rent.
means you eventually become bound by money. It becomes the center of your gravity.
Whatever we revolve around, we are bound by. That phrase is absolutely going to stick with me. Because if your mind is constantly orbiting your salary, you literally belong to your salary.
You're trapped in its orbit.
Which actually brings us to how the source redefines what it means to be free, or what the text calls a celestial being. Because usually when we talk about spiritual liberation, the image that pops into my head is asceticism.
A monk in an empty room with a wooden bowl.
Exactly. Wearing a robe, owning nothing.
But the text explicitly rejects that requirement. It says becoming free from material constraints does not mean rejecting material possessions altogether. You do not have to give up your house, your car, modern medicine, or your tools.
This is the part that really surprised me. It's not about the absence of things.
No, not at all.
It means your thoughts, your intentions, and your daily actions no longer revolve around the mere acquisition of more things. Instead, they revolve around something the author describes as, quote, more enduring and eternal.
Which sounds beautiful, right? But we should probably anticipate the obvious objection here.
Oh, absolutely. Because my immediate reaction on behalf of everyone listening was, well, that is a lovely sentiment, but I live in the real world.
The real economy.
Yeah. If I want to survive in this economy, my mind absolutely has to focus on my salary. Groceries are up. Rent is astronomical. Telling someone to just focus on eternal things feels deeply out of touch with the harsh reality of, modern inflation.
And that is a completely valid reaction. But the text actually addresses this tension head-on by redefining the role of work.
Okay.
It argues that creating material wealth and earning a living are perfectly acceptable, but they must be treated as a natural behavior and an adjunct to life.
An adjunct. Okay, let's modernize that concept a bit. Think about the operating system on your computer or your phone. You have background processes running all the time, right?
Yeah.
Checking for updates, syncing your photos to the cloud. They are totally necessary for the machine to run, but they aren't the reason you use the machine.
Right, you don't buy a phone just to sync it.
Exactly. You use it to create art or talk to your friends or learn something new. The problem happens when the pay the rent application starts taking up like 99% of your CPU.
The whole system just freezes.
Yes. You literally can't run the Appreciate a Sunset app. You can't run the Deep Connection with a Friend app. The essay is basically suggesting we keep the Pay the Rent app running, but we force it into the background so it only uses, say, 1% of our processing power.
I love that. That operating system analogy maps perfectly onto how the essay categorizes existence, actually.
Really?
Yeah, the author maps out a sort of cosmic ladder. They divide reality into 4 distinct realms based entirely on where a person's consciousness resides.
Okay, let's walk through those.
At the very bottom is the material world. This is where ordinary people live, completely consumed by the big 8 constraints. Their CPU is just maxed out on survival and status.
And then we move one step up, right,
Mm-hmm.
to the spiritual world. And this is where the text says the celestial beings live.
Exactly. Above that is the 3rd tier, the world of the soul, which is home to super celestial beings and Buddhas.
Okay.
And finally, at the very top is the holographic realm, inhabited by gods and the greatest creator.
Got it. So it's like floors in a building, and most of us are just stuck down in the crowded lobby, the material world stressing over the rent.
Yes. But let's focus on that foundational leap from the lobby to the 2nd floor, from the material world to the spiritual world, because that is where the practical application really lives for the listener today.
Right, because I'm probably not jumping straight to the holographic realm by Tuesday.
Probably not. But the text notes that the spiritual world isn't just populated by monks or ascetics. In our modern society, true artists and true scientists often live in the spiritual world.
I loved that detail. It suddenly grounds all this mysticism into something we can actually recognize in our daily lives.
Yeah, it makes it tangible.
Because think about it. A true scientist in a lab isn't thinking about how to monetize a new protein sequence, right? They are just obsessed with the purity of the discovery.
Right.
Or a true painter is consumed by the color and the canvas. They possess nothing in their minds but their passions.
Right.
So they might physically reside in the exact same city block as someone in the material world, but their consciousness is operating on an entirely different floor.
And the author makes a really important point to emphasize that living on that spiritual floor doesn't forbid you from enjoying physical comforts.
Right.
Like, living in a villa is demonstrably more comfortable than living in a cramped attic. Driving a luxury sedan is a much smoother experience than driving a tractor. The philosophy is not a denial of basic physical comfort. It is not a celebration of suffering.
Okay, but I have to jump in here.
Mm.
Because if someone in the material world and someone in the spiritual world can both theoretically drive the exact same luxury sedan,
Yeah.
how do we tell them apart? What is the actual functional difference in their lives?
That is the million-dollar question. And the difference reveals itself violently when the luxury is taken away.
Hmm.
It's entirely about how they experience deprivation. To illustrate this, the essay uses what we can call the thatched hut test.
I remember this part.
So imagine a person trapped in the material world who is suddenly forced to live in a basic, rudimentary thatched hut. That person is going to feel intense agony, sorrow, and anxiety.
Well, yeah, because society's common values dictate that living in a hut means you are a fundamental failure.
Precisely. The text points out that this person will be completely consumed by secondary worries. Things like, how will I ever find a spouse? How can I possibly raise children in these conditions? What do my peers think of me?
It's all external.
Right. The actual physical suffering of the cold or the rain is minimal compared to the agonizing social shame and existential panic. The pain is manufactured by the consciousness.
To put that in a super modern context, it's the person driving a beat-up 20-year-old car. Is the suffering really coming from the lack of heated seats? Or is it the knot in their stomach when they pull into the office parking lot and worry that all their coworkers are judging them?
That is a perfect modern parallel. Now, contrast that with a person living in the spiritual world who is placed in that exact same thatched hut or driving that exact same beat-up car.
Okay.
The text argues they will feel zero worries or sorrow. Why? Because their mind simply does not revolve around societal status or the accumulation of assets.
Wow.
The societal judgment just bounces off them because they aren't even tuned to that frequency. The physical reality of the hut is identical, but the lived experience is entirely different.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting. Because the author doesn't just leave it at a hypothetical hut. They take this to a very real, documented case study. Which brings us back to those crazy Vancouver numbers I teased at the very beginning of the deep dive.
The $60 a month.
Yes. The author introduces us to the Canadian headquarters of Lifechanyuan. And just for context for the listener, Lifechanyuan is described in the text as a modern spiritual community. The essay highlights 5 specific individuals living there, referred to as Crown of Chanyuan Celestials.
And the financial data provided for these 5 individuals for the year 2023 is just startling.
It's wild.
Their combined total income was 100,000 Canadian dollars. That breaks down to just 20,000 Canadian dollars per person for the entire year. Now, put that in perspective, the average annual income in Canada is over $43,000. So they are operating on less than half the national average.
But the math gets so much tighter than that. Like, let's look at Vancouver specifically. A standard one-bedroom apartment there runs no less than 1,600 Canadian dollars a month. But based on their 20,000 a year income, these individuals are only earning about 20,660 Canadian dollars a month.
It's razor thin.
You earn 1,660, rent is 1,600. That leaves $60 a month. Now, I have to push back hard here because earlier we established that this philosophy does not deny biological reality. You cannot eat a lack of psychological overhead. A stomach physically needs calories. So how does a human being physically survive, let alone live, quote, comfortably on $60 a month for food, utilities, and transportation?
It is the crucial question. And while the text leans heavily into the psychological liberation, it also subtly points to the physical mechanism making this possible. Community. These individuals are part of Lifechanyuan. They aren't 5 isolated people renting 5 separate expensive apartments and buying 5 separate sets of groceries. By pooling their resources, engaging in communal living, and dropping individual consumerism.
Right, so you don't need your own car, your own lawnmower, your own individual streaming subscriptions.
Exactly. By doing that, they fundamentally alter the physical math of survival.
So the physical mechanism is extreme resource sharing.
Yes. But, and here's the essay's steeple point, if you took an ordinary person from the material world and put them in that exact same communal living situation, earning that exact same amount,
Oh, they would lose their minds.
They would feel like they were in a miserable, poverty-stricken cult. They would be suffocated by the lack of individual ownership. They would panic over their lack of personal savings.
Their CPU would just be redlining with anxiety.
Exactly. But for these individuals, because their minds do not revolve around owning a private kitchen or building a personal real estate portfolio, they don't experience the psychological overhead of that poverty.
Right.
They're completely untethered from the societal expectation of what constitutes a quote-unquote good life.
Yeah.
They don't suffer the shame. So the author essentially asks us to judge who is actually living more freely. The person making $80,000 a year but drowning in the stress of mortgages and material expectations.
Constantly terrified of losing it all.
Or the person in this community who is completely unbound by those fears.
Which brings us to the grand paradox of the entire essay. It's like the twist ending to this whole philosophy. Because the text claims that letting go of material obsession actually yields a better material experience.
Right.
It states that people living in the spiritual world often enjoy more material comforts than those in the material world. And this is the secret behind their higher quality of life.
It sounds totally contradictory at first. Like, how can caring less about material things result in a higher quality of life?
So what does this all mean? To me, it clarifies the human condition just beautifully. Think about someone guarding a massive pile of wealth.
Okay.
They are terrified of losing it. They are constantly scheming to double it. They aren't actually enjoying the wealth. They're just experiencing the anxiety of the wealth.
Yeah.
They essentially become the security guard for their own money.
Ooh, that's a good way to put it.
But by letting go of that desperate white-knuckled grip, you unlock a higher quality of life because you are finally capable of being present. You can actually taste the food you're eating. You can enjoy your physical surroundings, whether it's a luxury sedan or a community garden, without that suffocating filter of societal anxiety.
Yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really culminates in the essay's most profound principle. Unselfishness leads to self, and selflessness leads to fulfillment.
That is powerful.
By ceasing to revolve around your own frantic material preservation, by achieving that selflessness, you actually fulfill your true self. The static, the interference, it's just gone. And the core lesson here for you listening is that you do not have to move to a Canadian commune to achieve this.
Thankfully.
You don't have to change your physical location at all. You simply have to change the axis your mind revolves on.
We've covered a lot of ground today. I mean, we started with the big 8 material constraints, eating, clothing, shelter, transportation, and then the fears of birth, aging, illness, and death that completely max out our mental CPU.
Right.
We mapped out the leap from the material world up to the spiritual world, where the artists and scientists operate. And we unpacked how dropping your societal expectations can take an absolute mathematical impossibility in Vancouver and turn it into actual freedom.
It is just a radical reframing of what it means to be successful.
It really is. So for you listening, I want to challenge you to try your own version of the FATCHTET test today. Next time you feel a spike of anxiety about a material problem, maybe you get a scratch on your car, or you realize you don't have the budget for a specific brand of clothing, ask yourself, how much of this pain is physical reality, and how much is just the fear of societal judgment?
That is a brilliant audit.
What is your mind actually revolving around?
It forces you to look at the invisible strings pulling your emotions.
Exactly. And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on that cosmic ladder we discussed.
Yeah.
Think about that ultimate tier, the holographic realm at the very top. I described it earlier as sort of the foundational source code of reality, where the physical hardware doesn't even matter anymore.
Right at the highest level.
Now look at our modern world. We are increasingly pouring our time, our money, and our identities into digital avatars, virtual reality, and the metaverse. We are literally building non-physical worlds. Could our modern obsession with the digital sphere actually be a subconscious technological attempt to escape the big 8 material constraints? Are we basically trying to build a digital shortcut to becoming celestial beings, free from aging and illness? And if so, is it actually going to work, or are we just coding an even more complex material trap for ourselves?
That is wow.
Something to think about next time you log on.